So now that we've taken a look at the circumstances surrounding the publication and staging of Macbeth, and we've kind of simplified the play of Macbeth's plot into 5 crucial moments that we're going to build on in later lessons, let's introduce the characters in Macbeth. Now, the characters in Macbeth can be quite confusing because there are a lot of them, as we see here. But actually, believe it or not, relative to other Shakespearean plays, the characters and their relationships are relatively simple. And there are plenty of websites where I encourage you to go to learn more about each of these characters. But what I want to focus on that sometimes students don't learn enough about is the relationship among characters. So let's begin by looking at all of these characters in groups, beginning with the individual noble and royal families. So first we have Duncan, Malcolm, and Donalbain. It's really important that we understand that this is the royal family. So Duncan is the King of Scotland. Malcolm has a title, Prince of Cumberland. Now, you may have heard for the English royalty that the Prince of Wales is the heir to the throne. Well, in Scottish royal history, the Prince of Cumberland is the heir to the throne. And Malcolm, this means that he is supposed to be king when Duncan dies. Of course, Macbeth interrupts that process by killing Duncan and taking the throne for himself. And after the murder of Duncan, Malcolm flees to England, where he gets help from King Edward, and Donalbain flees to Ireland. Now, Macbeth is going to say the fact that the sons left right after Duncan was murdered indicates that they were guilty and they had their father murdered. Now, of course, we know that this isn't true. We know that Macbeth killed the king, but Macbeth wants the sons of the king to seem guilty, right? And by the way, this is a very specific crime. You should know the name of it. Parricide, P-A-R-R-I-C-I-D-E, means killing the father. And of course, killing one's parents is one of the most despicable crimes that an individual can commit throughout human history. So this is the initial perception of Malcolm and Donalbain. When we move to the next family, we have Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. Of course, Macbeth is who we call the protagonist of the play, right? He drives the action. He's involved in the central conflict. We naturally identify with him in the story, even though, of course, he's not a very good person. And we have his wife, Lady Macbeth. One thing that's interesting about Macbeth and Lady Macbeth is that there's no children. Right? And today we live in an age where many couples legitimately choose not to have children for a number of reasons. But really, it's kind of odd in this historical moment for a couple not to have children. But we do know that Lady Macbeth has had children in the past. She says that she has, quote, given suck and knows how tender 'tis to nurse a babe, end quote. So we know that she has nursed a child. So presumably, she's had a child. So the question becomes, who is that child and where is that child now? There are 2 ways that scholars have interpreted this line. The first way that they've interpreted it is that Lady Macbeth is older and a widow. This means that she was married to someone else before she married Macbeth, and that man died. Scholars who take this interpretation point to the fact that Lady Macbeth seems so much more powerful than her husband in the beginning of the play as evidence that she's older and more experienced than him. The other interpretation, which, by the way, was taken up by the Michael Fassbender Macbeth movie that came out in 2016, is that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth did have a child, right, if this is our first option. The second option is that they did have a child, but their child is dead. Right? In the Fassbender film, they show the funeral of a child. And in any case, the absence of a child is important in Macbeth because we learn that the witches prophesy or predict that Banquo's sons will be kings, not Macbeth's. And normally, who becomes king? The son of the king when the king dies. So the fact that Macbeth doesn't have a child kind of relates to the fact that the witches prophecy that his line will not continue to hold the Scottish throne. The third family that we want to take a look at is Banquo and Fleance. So Banquo is another Thane, another Scottish nobleman and general. He is a good friend. Start seeing that Macbeth is a really, really bad guy. I mean, obviously when he kills the king, that's a very treacherous and questionable act. But that's closer to the prophecy, and Duncan doesn't quite have an intense personal friendship with Macbeth, even if they do seem to have a pretty good relationship. Banquo seems to be Macbeth's best friend. So the idea of murdering your best friend is a horrible act, and Banquo is really important to the plot and the story of Macbeth overall. One thing that's important to bring up about Banquo is that Banquo has a son named Fleance. And when Macbeth sends the murderers to kill Banquo, who he really wants to kill is Fleance. Why? Because the witches prophesy that Banquo's sons, starting with Fleance, will become king of Scotland. And Macbeth thinks if he kills Fleance, then that prophecy won't come true, and that he himself will be able to produce heirs, presumably, that will maintain the Scottish throne. A final thing I want to say about Banquo and Fleance is that they're another pair of father and son, right? We have Duncan and his sons. We have Banquo and Fleance. As we're going to see, we have Macduff and the son of Macduff. And we even have Seward and young Seward, his son. So there's this kind of father-son pairing that happens cyclically in Macbeth. But one of Macbeth's problems is that he has no son, and therefore he's nervous about who's going to maintain power after he dies. And he asks, why have I committed this crime against the king? Why have I killed my friends? Why have I damned my soul to hell if once I'm dead, someone else's son will become king? So this is an important rationale for Macbeth in the crimes that he commits throughout the play. Next, let's look at Macduff, Lady Macduff, and son of Macduff. So Macduff and the son of Macduff, as we mentioned, they're yet another father-son pair. Macduff is another Scottish nobleman. He's the Thane of Fife that we mentioned in the apparition of the armed head, and Macduff ultimately kills Macbeth. Something that's a little bit interesting about Macduff and Lady Macduff is that together they're kind of like a foil for Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. By the way, a foil is a character, or in this case, a pair of characters, who are very similar to other characters, but different in key ways. And in many of his plays, Shakespeare uses the technique of foiling characters in order to point out key differences in personality and behavior. So Macbeth famously kills the king when his wife convinces him to. Of course, it's his own decision, and the witches are involved as well, and questionably fate, but his wife wants him to kill the king, and ultimately, Macbeth shows loyalty to his wife over loyalty to the king. Macduff, however, he flees Scotland to go to Malcolm. And when he does this, he leaves Lady Macbeth, his wife, alone at home. In fact, when we meet Lady Macbeth in the play, she's upset that her husband has left her unprotected during such a dangerous time when so many people are dying. But when Macduff leaves to visit Malcolm, the rightful king of Scotland, what is he doing? He's showing loyalty to the state, to the king, above loyalty to his wife. And modern readers, we think that's a little bit cruel perhaps, but it's important because in a sense, it's an inversion of Macbeth's behavior. And it helps to kind of situate Macbeth and Macduff as opposite one another in their character and opposed to one another, as we see in the final scene of the play, or the second to last scene of the play, when Macduff beheads Macbeth. Finally, we have a group of Scottish noblemen. This isn't a family, but a group of noblemen. And all of these noblemen become loyal to Malcolm, right? They see that Macbeth is an evil guy. They see that he's kind of crazy. Remember, Lennox and Ross invite Macbeth to sit with them at the banquet, but Macbeth is going crazy. He's seeing ghosts. So they slowly, gradually decide Macbeth is crazy. He probably killed Duncan. We don't want to have a crazy, evil king. Let's be loyal to Malcolm, and let's restore the rightful king to the throne of Scotland. So this kind of gradual process of the noblemen becoming loyal to Malcolm is an important part of the falling action, as we're going to see, as we begin to see as the audience that, Macbeth is not going to get to be king for that long of a time. There are a lot of powerful people opposed to his rule. Okay, so at this point, we've kind of talked about the royal family, Duncan, Malcolm, Donalbain. We've talked about Macbeth, Lady Macbeth. We've talked about Banquo, Fleance, Macduff, Lady Macduff, son of Macduff, and Lennox, Ross, Menteith, Angus, and Caithness, the important Scottish noblemen. But we haven't talked about these kind of ancillary characters. So very quickly, let's talk about who they are and what their relationships are. So first of all, we have the three witches. The three witches are going to prophesize to Macbeth and prophesize to Banquo. They tell Macbeth he's going to be Thane of Cawdor and King of Scotland, two titles of nobility that he gains very quickly in the play. And they tell Banquo that he's going to be father to a line of kings, which is the reason why Macbeth decides to murder Banquo. Secondly, we have the murderers. So Macbeth tells the murderers to murder Banquo and Fleance, and later to murder Lady Macduff and the son of Macduff. Now, something we're going to talk about later in our course is that the murders that Macbeth asks for become increasingly irrational or unreasonable. When Macbeth chooses to kill Banquo and Fleance, it kind of makes sense because the witches prophesize that Banquo's sons will be King of Scotland. But then when Macbeth decides to kill Lady Macduff and the son of Macduff, it doesn't make any sense if you think about it. Because the witches say that Macduff is going to kill Macbeth. They don't say that his son is going to become king. They don't say that his wife is going to do anything to Macbeth. So all Macbeth really accomplishes by murdering Lady Macduff and son of Macduff is to make Macduff very angry, which seems stupid because the witches prophesize that Macduff is going to kill Macbeth. So the fact that these murders are always cruel, but they become less and less rational and pragmatic, is an indication that Macbeth's mental state is deteriorating over the course of the play. Thirdly, we have Satan, who is one of the last people loyal to Macbeth at the end of the play. We already talked about how his name may be a play on words with Satan or the devil. We have the doctor, who attends to Lady Macbeth. He seems to be the only good character who is in the Macbeth's court at the end of the play before Macbeth is killed. And the doctor kind of represents our perspective on events. He seems like a reasonable guy. He wants to help Lady Macbeth because she's sick. She's his patient. But he's very aware of the fact that things are going very crazy at Dunsinane and really bad things are about to happen. And finally, we have Seward and young Seward. So Seward and young Seward are yet another father-son pair. They're actually English. And Seward is to the English king kind of like what Macbeth is to the Scottish king at the beginning of the play. He's a very famous general and warrior, right? And Seward is kind of similar to Macbeth at the beginning of the play in the sense that he is loyal to the king and he's a famous general and warrior. But Seward is different from Macbeth in that he, unlike Macbeth, and like most of the other characters in the play, has a son. He has a natural heir, right? And Macbeth ends up killing young Seward. Remember, Macbeth wanted to kill Fleance, but he fails. He kills the son of Macduff, and he kills young Seward. So again, yet another cyclical event that happens in the play is Macbeth's murder or attempted murder of other noblemen's sons. And really, if you understand everything we've talked about here, you'll have a good sense of the way characterization operates in Shakespeare's Macbeth. So let's review very quickly what we talked about in today, our second section. First of all, we talked about the circumstances surrounding the publication and the staging of Macbeth. We think 1605, 1606, in the early years of King James's reign, is when it was first staged and first written. We talked about a very condensed plot summary. And a word of warning, if you're going to master Macbeth, you need to know much more than what we talked about today. But if you understand these 5 key moments in the play and understand a little bit about the way they can be interpreted, such as in the paintings we looked at, then you're well on your way to putting yourself in a position to really succeed through hard work in understanding and analyzing this play. And finally, we took a look at the characters in Macbeth and specifically their relationships. I encourage you to go online and to look up other resources to learn more about these characters so that you're prepared to read the tests and begin analyzing. Thank you very much for staying with me in Section 2. I'm Edward Dunnigan together with the Bund Education, and I look forward to seeing you next lesson for Section 3.